Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, I want to invite you to like this video, share this video with someone that you think will enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps us out. Now, this was a very light week. Now, it is a fifth Wednesday, it's a fifth week, so usually those weeks are kind of light. And this one is very, very light. Aside from Marvel, like Marvel had like a regular week, everybody else had like hardly anything. So this is a very light week. However, even if this was a hefty week, I think the pick of the week would stand strong. And we always start with the pick of the week. So this week's pick of the week, Agent of WORLDE, issue number 2 from Scout Comics, written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Philia Bertutkin. We got coloring by Jason Wordie, lettering by Hassan Othman El How. Y'all, this book is a trip. It is a trip. It is wild. So Agent of WORLDE is about this organization called WORLDE, and they're this like super high-tech, super science, like spy organization, right? So you've got high-concept science fiction, and you have like this spy story type thing, right? Now, each issue of Agent of WORLDE is a self-contained story, but there is an overall narrative that is kind of being thread throughout the issues. And we're only 2 issues through so far of this 4-issue miniseries that is part 1. Hopefully there will be more coming in. I love this book. It is wild. In this one, our main character gets partnered up with a character from his past, so we're learning more about a different Agent of WORLDE, as well as that dynamic with the main character of this book, and I cannot remember his name for some reason. And it's just a wild, crazy, kooky kind of story. It's got really weird, rambunctious, out there kind of moments, zany moments, out there, wild concepts. But it also has this thread of nuance, meaning, and impact. Like emotional impact in this book. I absolutely loved it. Spy thriller, high concept science fiction, and at the same time, just overall, a really fantastic comic book. I love it. Now, the artwork by Philia Bertutkin is wild as hell. This is incredibly dense, hyper detailed. There is so much line work on all of these pages. It's kind of like a Jeff Darrow, Mobius kind of thing going on here, but definitely with its own unique style and distinct vision. I love the hell out of this book. I think artistically it is absolutely splendid and superb. I think as a story, it is delivering what I love, which is crazy cool concepts told in an interesting way with an anchor of humanity. This is what I love in story. And then you add in the beautiful artwork from Bertutkin, that highly rich, detailed line, and then the coloring by Jason Wordie, the lettering by Othman El How. It all is absolute top-level work from every single creator here. I love this book. Now, it may be a bit challenging. It may seem a bit confusing to some, but I think this book rewards people on subsequent rereads. So this is a book that I really encourage people to read and then reread. I think you will increase your level of enjoyment and what you get out of this book the more you read it. That being said, this to me is by far the best book on shelves this week, probably the best book on shelves this entire month, and it might be one of the best single issues of the year, in my opinion. I love this book so much. If you didn't like the first issue, I don't think you're going to like this one. But if you did like that first issue, you thought something was there, I think they're really going to pull you in on this one. It's fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Let's move over to Marvel. We have a new Thunderbolts book, Thunderbolts #1. This one written by Jim Zub with artwork by Akazi. And yeah, let's just go with that. So now Thunderbolts, it's a New York sanctioned team now. Recently, Luke Cage has become mayor of New York. That's been from the aftermath of Devil's Reign. Luke Cage is mayor. The Thunderbolts had recently kind of become just like Kingpin's, like, Merc Squad, right? So he wants to kind of clean up the name of Thunderbolts, have them be New York's officially sanctioned superhero team, and they peg Hawkeye to lead the team. Now, you got other characters in here. America Chavez is here. You got the Purple Man's daughter in here. You got some new character, interesting mystery kind of built up around there. The new iteration of Power Man. You got Photon/Spectrum. I don't know what this little dude is right there. He doesn't really show up in this issue. I liked this issue. Now, I am a huge fan of Thunderbolts from back in the Kurt Busiek, Mark Bagley days, and then eventually Fabian Nicieza came in, Patrick Zircher came in, like, to do the artwork. I love that Thunderbolts run. I still have all of it, right? That being said, this doesn't quite feel like that, but it feels connected to it because there's a lot of references to old school Thunderbolts stuff. There's a lot of references to West Coast Avengers stuff, so I liked this book. I wasn't really expecting too much out of it, but it delivered a really interesting team, a fun enough premise. The dynamics between the characters seem like they're going to blossom into something. You got a mystery character that, for the first time in a long time, I'm reading a Marvel book and I'm like, ooh, who is this new character? I'm interested in what this person is and it's interesting. This was a really good first issue of a classic feeling and vibing Marvel comic. I loved it. They're no longer former criminals, but it's also no longer just the Suicide Squad, right? Which is what Thunderbolts kind of become, just kind of like Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. And so I like the idea that Cage wants to kind of remove the tarnish from the name Thunderbolts because he led a Thunderbolts team, and of course Hawkeye did. But I loved it. I thought this was really good. I liked it a lot. I was surprised. Then we got Amazing Fantasy 1000. Somehow I missed the previous, like, I don't know, 960 or 70 issues or something. Anyway, Amazing Fantasy. So this is just a giant $8 short story anthology collection, all focusing on Spider-Man from different creators to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man. That's what it is. Why an Amazing Fantasy 1000 instead of just a Spider-Man 60th anniversary special? I don't know. It's silly. Anyway, you got some pretty decent stories in here. You got a story by Michael Cho. I actually really did appreciate that story. There was a Dan Slott, Jim Chung story that I thought was really good too, especially you could look at it as a nice capstone to the ultimate end of Dan Slott's time on Spider-Man or whatever. There's a couple little dud stories here and there, some things that were just okay. There was a Jonathan Hickman story with artwork from Marco Cicchetto that I really liked. And then the last story is by Neil Gaiman and Steve McNiven. And at first I didn't know how I kind of felt about it. It's more about Neil Gaiman's personal experience as a Spider-Man fan as a kid and growing up. But by the end of it, it was, I thought, a very touching tribute to Steve Ditko. So overall, the most hardcore Spidey fans, you might want to check this out. But for the most part, it's kind of skippable. It's got some good, solid stories in it, and it's got some kind of weak stories in it. So it's a mixed bag. Then we got Ant-Man here with issue number 2. This one is focusing on the Eric O'Grady version of the character from the early 2000s. That run, the Irredeemable Ant-Man, I believe that was the Robert Kirkman, Phil Hester type stuff. So Ant-Man, this is a 4-issue series by Al Ewing, Tom Riley doing the artwork, and Tom Riley did a great job of kind of not ripping off his style, but homaging that style, that 2000s era book. So each issue is focusing on a different Ant-Man, and there's this thread of an Ant-Man from the future, and he's kind of assembling a team of Ant-Men to combat something, right? So this one is really just focused in on Eric O'Grady. I think it's the 60th anniversary of Ant-Man as well this year, so this is kind of a celebration of that. Plus, there's an upcoming Ant-Man Wasp movie, and there's going to be a Wasp series after this one, so you got to get some trade paperbacks out there on bookshelves. But this was a nice, kind of fun story. Now, it didn't quite connect as much as I thought it should or would to the ongoing story, but the last issue didn't either. The last issue did a good job of being like a 60s Silver Age era Hank Pym story. This is does a great job of just being a good 2000s era Eric O'Grady story. So I thought it was cool. Then we got Deadpool Bad Blood, issue number 4. If you like Rob Liefeld, and especially if you like Rob Liefeld's modern work, you're going to like this book. If you're the most hardcore Deadpool fan, definitely check it out, unless you've already checked out the graphic novel, because this was originally a graphic novel. Now it's being re-released as a 4-issue miniseries with a couple new pages on each issue. I find things in this book to enjoy. Now, overall, the story didn't do super much for me, but I did appreciate the artwork. I think there's some moments where it really works and really pops. That one right there. Then there's some bits where you can just see some shortcuts kind of made or whatever, but at the same time, some pages are very dynamic, so it's kind of a mixed bag as far as Rob Liefeld goes, but it's the best and the worst of Liefeld all kind of thrown together in 22 pages, and, you know, 4 issues through, I'm not angry that not only did I read it, but I bought every issue. So there you go. From DC, we have Superman, Warworld, Apocalypse. This is a giant one-shot, ending finally this whole Warworld saga. And it kind of goes out, to me, with a little bit of a whimper. I thought it was just okay. With all of the build-up, all the time, all the space that's been built up to Mongol and how badass he's going to be, it kind of wraps up very quickly, even in this extra-size special. So it was just so right. I think this would, with some trimming down, this could have been a really cool, like, milestone kind of Superman story, but it just kind of ran in circles and then ultimately led to a fizzled out ending, at least as far as I'm going. But that being said, I do appreciate this story. I do like the direction of it, and I do want to sit down and kind of read it all in like in a weekend or something to see how if it evens out at all. Then we got the Flash 2022 annual. We got a bunch of annuals from DC. The only one I read was the Flash one, because I'm really liking what Jeremy Adams has been doing on the Flash. This was a nice, solid annual story, right? So Linda, she's dealing with new powers. She's also trying to become a fiction writer. So this is Wally reading her fiction book before she goes out to get it published. And so it's telling the story, and it's kind of related to their history. So I thought it was a nice, cute, charming, kind of fun story. This book's been consistent. It's not going to change your life, but it's good, solid superhero comics from Jeremy Adams, DC Comics and Company, with The Flash. Then we got Sandman Universe Nightmare Country, issue number 5. The book highlighting the Corinthian. All of a sudden, a household name the Corinthian is because of the success of the Sandman TV show, which I did really like. And if you haven't watched the Sandman show, I highly encourage you to do so. But Sandman Universe Nightmare Country number 5, it's a good explainy issue where some things really move forward in the story, and there's some explanations given as to why we are where we are, who are these characters, things like that. The artwork by Lysandro Estherren to me felt a bit rushed and just kind of a bit not quite like it was in the previous 4 issues, but there is a bit here by Aaron Campbell that was absolutely amazing. So I'm liking the story, I'm liking where we're going. The artwork just felt a bit rushed, a bit behind, not quite as pristine or refined as you maybe. There was something to me that felt a little off, a little rushed, but other than that, Nightmare Country's been solid. We got Power Rangers Unlimited, The Death Ranger, issue number 1. I'm falling out of Power Rangers, and I'm falling out of Power Rangers fast. I may drop after 100. I really liked all the stuff with the Omega Rangers. I really liked all the Draken stuff. But it's just kind of hitting these points now where it's referencing these Power Ranger series that I myself aren't super familiar with. But not that that's necessarily a bad thing, it's just starting to lose its appeal to me. That being said, I wanted to check out who is the Death Ranger, what's going on, and there's some interesting bits added to the mythology here, but for the most part, I just didn't have a connection to this story, to these characters, or what was going on. It's kind of, obviously it's going to be important to the build up to 100. I think 100 might be coming up very, very soon. So, I don't know, there you go. But to be honest with you, I haven't really been digging on the last few months of Power Ranger books, and they're kind of losing me. They're kind of losing me. Also from Scout this week, we have Flash Forward number 1. This is a new one from Zach Kaplan with artwork by, I think it's Arjuna Susini. Yes, I thought this book was pretty decent. It was alright. So it's a time travel story. There are moments where I really like the artwork and some moments where the artwork falls just a little bit flat for me right there. Coloring doesn't really help. There's not much poppy there. However, other moments, it's really freaking awesome. So that's cool. So what it is it's about this dude who's trying to discover time travel, and he's able to send a mouse like 1.33 seconds into the future. He's kind of pushing it forward. He's got some friends around. It's his birthday. He's trying to work. They're trying to drag him out. An electrical storm happens. It activates his device. They get shunted into the future. And the only way that they can find to go back to their time is to keep going forward into the future until they have figured out how to send people back in the past. So it's a decent enough setup. The character work's not quite enough there to engage me there, but the concept's cool, and some of the artwork really does work. So there are moments where it works, moments where it falls flat. All in all, it was an okay debut issue, and I'm excited to see what happens in issue number 2. Then we got Pentagram of Horror, issue number 4. I really like this series, and I really like the artwork, but this was the one where the story just didn't really do much for me. It was okay, And even though each issue of this, and each issue is its own self-contained story, all kind of involving like horrific type things and Satan and devils and stuff, but I love the artwork in the book. It's very monochromatic, but it's got a sense of style, a sense of lighting, shading, fear that I really, really like in the artwork. So for me, the story was just all right. It's trying to do like its own take on a Western ghost horror story or something like that, but it just didn't quite win me over story-wise. But the art was great. But out of all the issues so far at Pentagram of Horror, this to me has been the weakest. Speaking of the weakest issue, Red Man number 3 lost me. I really like this book. It's not trying to do anything exceptional. Kaiju fights, Ultraman type stuff. It's from the makers of Ultraman, it says, but Red Man's like the real version of Ultraman, and all the footage that we saw from those shows were based on this real thing. I don't know. First issue and second issue had some really nice kaiju fights. This one, it's alright. It's just about this one monster going around looking at other monsters, and then Red Man tries to fight it, and then it just has this weird confrontation. It's over, and then I get the sense that the book is over? I don't know. It had okay artwork, but it just... I was really liking this book. 1 and 2 I really thought were solid, but there was something in this one that just felt a bit off. I don't know. Maybe I need to read it again and check it out. Speaking of feeling a bit off, I'm feeling a bit off on Ant right now. Now, I appreciate what Eric Larson's doing with this book, but at the same time, I can't fully appreciate it because I still feel lost. And at the end here, he's talking about how he's referencing this. These are unused pages from a Spawn issue that he did that was a crossover, and he's redoing it in a different way or something. It's completely losing me, right? There are moments of this book that I like. So it's Savage Dragon teaming up with Ant and Spawn. But I need to sit down and start again with issue number 1, because in issue number 1, I really was liking the artwork and I was liking the excitement. But this one just gets a little bit more dull, a little bit more boring, just a lot more talking, and a little bit less dynamic Kirby-inspired energy. And that's what I was kind of expecting out of here. So I'm going to get back at some point, reread through, see if it kind of clears up the narrative for me. But I really wanted to get it back to some really dynamic action. Then we got Red Sonja issue number 12, the final issue of the Mirka and Dolfo story, which introduced us to Red Sitha, and we already kind of have the sequel to this one where Red Sitha is an adult and dealing with her own thing, but this was a nice, solid finale. I've appreciated this run because it put Red Sonja in a different light for me, a little bit more of a motherly role, but hesitant to accept that role or even to understand that that's really the emotion that's welling up inside of her, is her care for this child. But I really liked watching this relationship blossom. I really liked seeing this character develop, and I really liked this conclusion. I thought it was a really solid run. Then we got Vampirella Year 1 issue number 2. I read this one. I was lost as hell. I remember liking the first issue and getting into it. And Christopher Priest has been doing a long, extended run on Vampirella, so this is kind of going back and telling the story of an early Vampirella. In the second issue, she's like a kid, but there's a lot of stuff I feel like they're referencing that I just don't get. So I'm feeling lost, so I may be dropping out again and just have to sit down, dedicate a weekend or something, and just read all the Christopher Priest stuff. See if that irons it out for me. Then we got Ninja Kaiden, issue number 2 from Black Box Comics, with special promotion by Comics with Bueller, so that's always super cool. Issue number 2 was pretty solid. So this is about a dude who's got this suit that allows him to see and touch ghosts, but it goes the other way, and he's kind of a ninja, and I don't know. Like, I kind of had forgotten what the suit was supposed to do, so like halfway through the book, they reminded me. But it's well written. Like, it's not boring, it's exciting, but it was, I feel like I guess it'd been a couple months or something, so it was hard for me to kind of plug back into this world, to this character. So a lot of it was some talking and referencing things that I didn't really remember, and usually I have pretty good reading retention. But anyway, it's written by Eric Palicki, and I'm a fan of his work, so I'm definitely going to continue reading this one because it has a great, nice pace to it, but it might be one of those things that's good to read in a trade or all at once after you collect them. And then we got Breakout issue number 3, also written by Zach Kaplan, who did Flash Forward. I've been liking this book. It's about these aliens that come in with these cubes, and they're like kidnapping all these kids, right? And they're just up in these cubes, but the world has kind of just decided to accept it and move on. So every so often they'll just come and scoop up some more kids. Why, we don't know, but there is a group of kids who are out there trying to find a way to break into one of these ships to save this one dude's brother. So this is the break-in. The way that this story was structured was all right. So it could have been exciting. It could have had a lot of energy to it, but they're doing that heist type thing where you're hearing the narrative of we're going to do this and we're going to do this while they're showing it, but it doesn't have like a brisk pace to it, and so the dialogue or the narrative, the narration I should say, kind of slows down what could be more exciting. I would like to experience more of this happen and not just be told what's going to happen. Now I know that that's a heist movie kind of trope, and this is kind of like a heist type thing where they're trying to break someone out of a prison or something like that. But it was all right. I thought it was decent, and it does explain like what the aliens are doing, what is their purpose, and it has a decent enough setup for the finale. I guess there's 1 or 2 more issues left. But it's all right, but to me, this one kind of just fell a little bit flat in momentum. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. The Fantastic Four Full Circle, Alex Ross graphic novel is also out this week. But our shop was shorted some of our copies, so I didn't get a chance to read that. But Thunderbolts really impressed me. Amazing fantasy. I mean, it's got some good, it's got some bad, it's got some ugly. Ant-Man's all right. Superman Warworld Apocalypse, a little bit of a fizzled out ending for that kind of, I don't know. Death Ranger, not really quite for me. Forever Forward had a promising concept. Pentagram of Horror is okay. Red Man, kind of disappointing. Solid finale to Red Sonja. But the pick of the week, by far, Agent of WORLDE issue number 3. Crazy, high concept science fiction. One and done stories. Amazing, like European style comic book artwork. Incredibly textured and detailed. Rich colors. Amazing lettering. Top-notch book. Pick of the week. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I dug. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop, boom.